Hello World Wide Web, I'm Dr. Shado, the internet personality with the best hair. And, finicky technology. But hey, all's well that ends well, and I'm back on my computer able to do my reviews again. At least up until the next hard drive fails on me. Never mind that though, this week's review is a story of science gone mad and the dangers of Hollywood programming. The Fly. As in David Cronenberg's The Fly from 1986, as opposed to the original The Fly from 1958. Unless you're talking about the original The Fly, which, if my sources are correct, was a short story published in Playboy in 1957. Like many remakes, 1986's The Fly seems only loosely based on the original, not following the established story of a teleportation gone wrong resulting in a scientist trying to get the rest of his atoms back from a fly, but a teleportation gone wrong resulting in a genetic Buddhism where the scientist in question becomes one with the fly. It's also dripping with 80s tech like Walkmans and VHS camcorders. Pretty much everything we hate seeing in modern remakes, but it kind of gets a pass because, well, I love the 80s. Anyway, let's take a look at The Fly and see... No, the damn movie! The story opens up to a big science convention. Or party. Seems like just a bunch of people in suits drinking expensive alcohol together, but it's in the name of science. And here we find Jeff Goldblum taking the leading role as Seth Brundle, a scientist working on secret scientific sciences, which are so secret he has to take this lady, Veronica, played by Jeff's girlfriend at the time, Gina Davis, back to his place if she wants to hear about it.
Sorry, I have 3 other interviews to do before this party's over.
Yeah, but they're not working on something that'll change the world as we know it.
Personal hoverboards, the Triton artificial gill, solar frickin' roadways. When will you people learn that the data does not back up the claims these charlatans are making? Now, just with a small donation to my research into cold fusion, however, one wide-eyed crazy stare later, and Seth convinces Veronica to come back with him to his lab. His lab out in a shitty part of the city, in an apartment building where the first thing he does is lock her in there with him. This place is actually so run down, Goldblum has to provide the soundtrack for the scene as well.
Listen, maybe this is a bad idea.
Oh, it's too late. You've already seen them. Can't let you leave here alive.
Still strange having a piano for the soundtrack. I mean, I know the original's from 1958, but for the remake, shouldn't Jeff be breaking out the electric guitar and hair metal like, yeah? As she remains unconvinced he has anything in this place other than dust and junk, Seth gives her the $5 tour, showing off his old clunky prototype in the corner before directing her attention to the shiny new ones near the center of the room. Showing they exist doesn't exactly clear things up, though.
So, what do they do, the phone booths?
Telepods.
Originally, the telepods were supposed to look something like phone booths or glass showers, but then they decided to go with a design that looked something similar to the cylinders on the Ducati motorcycle of Cronenberg's, so that just ends up leaving me wondering what in the fuck kind of phone booths Veronica's been using. Rather than just tell her what they do, though, Seth intends to show her, so requesting something personal and unique that he could not possibly have a spare of kicking around, she decides to hand him one of her mass-produced stockings, which she clearly has at least 2 of. No bother, on with the show.
Teleportation?
Yeah, what did she think a telepod was? An SUV for dolphins? Even seeing her stocking beyond the fog in the new telepod doesn't mean she's completely convinced, but his basic explanation of what teleportation is still gets her excited enough to use that handy-dandy Walkman recorder to tape him explaining how he did this and managed to keep it a secret. For the most part, he just figures out the general idea of what is needed and hires others to make those specific parts, though the others in question don't know anything about the bigger picture. His telepods also manage to stay under the radar because they're remarkably cheap to make.
Wait a second.
What's that? What are you doing?
Well, you want me to get the quotes right, don't you?
Silly 80s journalism with dated concepts like accuracy and evidence. Most surprisingly of all, our genius here had no frickin' idea that Veronica was a journalist. Somehow.
I'm gonna have to ask you for that tape, please.
You can't do that.
Don't you dare write a story. I'd never have told any of this stuff to a journalist.
But you did tell this stuff to a journalist.
How did he not know? How could he not know? She told him that she had 3 more interviews to do at that science party thing. What the fuck universe exists where women just go to science fairs and try and find who has the most impressive scientific breakthroughs so they can fuck them? Though I do have to admit that would be one hell of a carrot on a stick. But on his quest for Poon, she got the story of a lifetime and brings the tape directly to her editor, Stathis, played by John Getz.
What do you think?
It's a joke.
What?
He's conning you. Oh, it's an old nightclub routine. The two cabinets.
Yeah, we're Particle Magazine. We only showcase verifiable, real science, not flashy bullshit with no basis in reality that just exists to get people excited enough to empty their wallets. That's what Kickstarter's for. Seth also manages to run down there right behind her, finding out to his surprise not only has she already spilled the beans, her editor doesn't believe a word and he's perfectly fine. Still, Seth wants to talk with Veronica again about something, but not here.
I've come here to say one magic word to you.
Yeah?
Cheeseburger.
How the hell is that supposed to... Give that man a Nobel Prize! Turns out he didn't want the word to get out yet because the teleporter isn't ready and can't reliably teleport living creatures.
Well, what happens when you try to teleport living things?
Not while we're eating.
Can't be worse than this.
Au contraire. Arby's. Of course, Seth understands that do what I tell you and you get nothing is actually not how a compromise works, so in exchange for her not publishing the story on him, he offers her exclusive access to his lab to write a book about the development of what surely will be the most important technological leap in the history of mankind.
And your book will end with me transporting myself 15 feet through space from one telepod to another. That's what's really missing.
Well, that and the refusing the call part of the hero's journey. There never really was a time where I didn't want to do this. Say, you think you could write in a little kid comic relief character just for fun? So she gets the deal so long as she doesn't pursue early publication of the work. Only problem is now we learn that not only is Stathis Veronica's editor, he's also her creepy ex-boyfriend who still has her apartment key, constantly comes around to bother her, and now actually did look deeper into Seth Brundle, finding out he is a real scientist, not just an old con man. Veronica doesn't want anything to do with this conversation, of course, and pretends to be moving on to a different story anyway. Of course, Stathis doesn't believe her, just like he doesn't believe she doesn't actually want him showing up to try and get them back together.
You're a petty schmuck.
Veronica, you do realize you could call the police about this, right? And after a few times where he gets clubbed in the head and dragged off to spend 3 days in jail, I'm pretty sure he's gonna stop doing this. No bother, while her ex is distracted with trying to undermine her work in journalism, she continues her work filming that documentary about the invention of the telepod, and it's a big day, as they're testing out the ability to transport a living creature, a baboon. Not necessarily in the same condition it was sent in, but hey, technically it's all still there. Obviously this isn't exactly what it was going for, which we hear about in this post-experiment interview.
The world will want to know what you're thinking.
Fuck is what I'm thinking.
Good. The world will want to know that.
Especially the people you got the baboon from, considering, those aren't cheap. I mean, they're very useful for certain kinds of tests, but will this still be in one piece when it gets to Area B? You could go with something a lot cheaper and more common and easily replaceable, like rats. Seth explains to the audience that it's his fault because he failed to program the machine to understand how organic systems go together, which is why the telepods only work on inanimate objects. Still, though, considering how much long-distance traveling is done not by humans or other living creatures, but inanimate objects, wouldn't this still be ready for release? And just imagine the royalties off of Amazon alone. You can make ass tons of money with this technology. Because the computer doesn't know enough about flesh, it must be that he doesn't know enough about flesh, which he gets a crash course in very quickly as Veronica decides, hey, I've seen his work for like 2 days and filmed him turning a baboon inside out, may as well start fucking. This inspires another experiment, not involving ape sex, but steak. I suppose that would be a far more efficient method of making ground beef. Oh, no, actually, it came through looking fine, but Seth wants Veronica's opinion on how the different halves of the steak taste to her.
Okay. Now try this teleported half.
Oh, are you serious? A monkey just came apart in there.
Baboon. Heat.
Movie, the wider half got teleported. That's the... Yeah... That's just her good old-fashioned continuity error there, as Veronica thinks the teleported steak tastes weird and synthetic, and this knowledge is what gives Seth the inspiration to program the computer to...
Made crazy by the flesh, the poetry of the steak. So I'm going to start teaching it now.
How the hell do you program a computer to like something? Or go insane? And you sound like someone who's getting really excited over quantum computing because you have no fucking idea how quantum physics work. While he works on that, Veronica heads out for a bit, running back into her ex because magazine editor is such a low-maintenance job he can afford to spend days stalking her outside Seth's apartment. At this point, he's getting more intrusive and assumes Veronica must be sleeping with the man.
I am finally onto something that's big, huge.
Yeah? What? His cock?
Damn, now I gotta think of something else to say. She pretty much tells him their relationship is over, so he should stop fucking stalking her again. But doesn't call the cops, because Besides, they gotta watch the spare baboon get teleported and see if the sequence completes without looking like the finale of Akira.
I think it's time for champagne.
A fun fact, in this movie, the baboon actually did follow Goldblum's league because the man is quite tall and was pretty muscular at the time of filming, so I guess he kinda came off like the super baboon to him. The fact that the baboon is still in one piece doesn't mean they're completely good, of course, and they know this, which is why Seth is going to send it off for medical tests that will take several weeks to complete. In the meantime, he and Veronica can celebrate this milestone with some Chinese food. However, a package was slipped under the door addressed to Veronica.
Oh, yeah, I'll wait.
Oh, no.
What? What's that?
Bad angle. From there, he looks all, meek and submissive. You gotta get one from the top, all dominant and shit. Or just do what I do and go straight on like, human and relatable. Rather than tell him about this major problem with both her career and his secret research, she just leaves him high and dry with nothing but ambiguity to explain why she's doing this. Thus, while she's off telling her ex-boyfriend to go fuck himself, Seth is getting drunk and intellectually spanking the monkey, musing that she must be with her ex telling him to go fuck her doggy style. Thus, feeling betrayed and alone, and having drank a bit too much liquid bravery, Rundle decides, screw it, he's going to teleport himself right now. Who cares about waiting for the baboon's health results? What's the worst that could happen? An unseen variable due to an unsecured environment with unknown consequences? Yeah, that's pretty bad. Unlike the original story in the 1958 film, though, he doesn't walk out of the teleporter a half-man, half-fly monster. Quite to the contrary, he looks perfectly fine. When Veronica returns that night, however, she's distraught to find out he went through already, without even getting the baboon sent off for tests yet. But after they apologize to each other for the ex-relationship thing and the playing God without supervision stuff, it's time for some makeup sex. Revealing to the audience, not quite the characters yet, that not all is what it seems. Or things are exactly what they seem considering the damn movie is called The Fly. This point of his transformation is much more subtle physically and is only really obvious in a behavioral level. For instance, late-night acrobatics, a massive taste for sugar, and his ability to literally fuck all night long.
How can you keep going? You can't have any fluid left in your body. We've been doing this for hours.
My own recipe. Pre-workout, Red Bull, and Viagra. No matter the case, Veronica needs a breather, and finally notices those odd hairs growing out of his back. While she works on grooming his pubertations, Seth gets an idea of how he and her can fuck all day, every day, without sleeping. All he has to do is get her to go through the telepod like he did, and surely she will have the same insane power surging within her that he has within himself. Thing is, she's convinced something must have fucked up somewhere and refuses to go through with it. That's not going to stop him, though. He wants a girlfriend of infinite fucking, and he's going to go to a bar to find one. Coming across Tawny, played by Joe Bushell. She's not available, but he makes a bet that if his skinny ass can best these guys in an arm wrestling competition, she's coming back to his place. It's all in the wrist. Not for him anymore. His wrist is all out, on the table. Point is, he takes her home with him and doesn't throw her in the telepod first thing. Instead, he just teleports himself again, and then fucks her for a while. In fact, they even have enough downtime to establish an alcohol rub is very painful for him before he breaks down and actually tries tossing her into the telepod directly.
I'm afraid!
Don't be afraid!
No. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Yeah, how secure could it possibly be, made by the guy who doesn't even know how to lock his fucking door? The awkward nature of having your girlfriend show up on your one-night stand results in Tawny deciding, fuck this, she'll get dressed out in the hallway. This gives Veronica a chance to try to plead with Seth, telling him he's sick, confused, and smells bad. Rather than listen to her, he just throws her out and tells her never to come back again. This gives him plenty of alone time to check out the mirror, finding out he looks incredibly sick and becomes quite confused when his fingernails start falling off. Something about this whole thing doesn't smell right, so he checks his telepod computer for information about what happened, revealing a mysterious second entry in the teleportation records for his port. Soon enough, he learns it was a simple housefly, and tries to find out what the computer did with it. His perfunctory poetic programming created a computer that combines creatures into mutant monstrosities through molecular manipulation. Big creatures, not small ones like those microscopic spiders crawling all over your skin. I just made you itchy. About a month passes or so, going by the dialogue when Seth calls Veronica up out of the blue, hoping she can help him in some way. When she arrives, we find that the transformation from human to half-human, half-fly is taking its toll on his body, leaving him very weak and falling apart. Literally. It's kind of like the video's scientifically accurate Spider-Man, except they don't play it for laughs when his dick comes off. Not sure what he expects her to do, but all he does is ask her to help him. Somehow. For some reason, the only thing she can think of is talking to Stathis and finding out if he has any ideas. His only idea right now is for her to get some kind of footage of Seth to show him, then he might have an idea. Fortunately, by the next time she arrives at Seth's lab, he's feeling much better, not hobbling around anymore, and very enthusiastic about making a video showing off all the nifty scientific things he's discovered out being a half-man, half-fly monster. None of this really goes anywhere, though, because there's something we discover that hits a bit closer to home.
I'm pregnant.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Well, it's not like this is something you have to rush on. You have about 20 more weeks to think about it, at least. Of course, that's 20 more weeks of nightmares about giving birth to maggot babies, so maybe that's not the best option out there. Back with Seth, though, his transformation has continued, but he's still at the computer trying his best to figure out how to become more human, while being distracted by every little thing. I know that feeling. Point is, while he deals with his metamorphosis, Veronica shows back up to try to talk with him about the pregnancy, but gets a bit distracted by the current situation.
My teeth have begun to fall out. The medicine cabinet's now the Brundle Museum of Natural History. You want to see what else is in it?
Huh, sure, that sounds like a terrific bonding experience. Oh, remember how much fun we used to have with this. At this point, Seth is so far gone both physically and mentally, Veronica doesn't even manage to tell him about being pregnant. He just points out that as he's losing his humanity, he can't guarantee her safety if she ever comes back, so GTFO. That's not to say he never learns about this, though.
I don't want it in my body!
Ah, don't look so forlorn, Brundlefly. Most of us don't even hear about it until after the fact. If at all. Veronica is nothing if not efficient, though, heading out immediately to a 24-hour clinic to get this problem taken care of in a hurry. Before they can, though, first they must leave her alone in this room with a giant fucking window, so this can happen. You know, on one hand, this is very similar to how monsters in classic 50s movies would just barge in and kidnap a woman, and on the other, it's also very similar to a psychotic Kool-Aid man. Point is, out the window he takes her, and off into the night. Turns out just for a pep talk, though, as he begs Veronica to have the child, as it may be the last remnant of his humanity left on this earth. She refuses, though, so it's off to Plan B. What is Plan B, you ask? Well, Seth was still working hard to figure out how to restore his own humanity, and came up with a plan, which Stathis stumbles upon when he enters the lab, shotgun at the ready. That prototype telepod has now been set up for use as a means to combine Seth with more humans, and at least increase his human-to-fly ratio. It's a lot of damn work to set all that up, though, considering, I mean, the telepods weren't huge, but he could fit at least 2 people into one of them and achieve the same exact result. First things first, though, he has to kill Stathis. So, utilizing his fly puke superpowers, he destroys the man's hand so he can't use the gun so easily, and a foot so he can't run. Veronica stops him before he can kill Stathis, though, and figures, leave him there. It's not like he'll fuck this up at the last second or anything. This is where he reveals to Veronica his plan to merge together with her, assimilating the human DNA from both her and their unborn child to restore himself. Obviously, she's not thrilled with this proposition, but the last of Seth's humanity falls away at this point. Again, quite literally. It's certainly the most fly-like he's looked all movie, but still not just a giant fly. The filmmakers were specifically trying to avoid that, as it didn't make sense in the narrative anyway, considering he was a 50-50 splice between human and fly DNA. So he tosses Veronica into one telepod while himself entering another, with a timer counting down until the sequence initiates. Problem is, that guy he left injured but alive with the shotgun? Yeah, it turns out he manages to pull together just enough strength to fuck everything up at the last second, shooting the wires of Veronica's telepod and disconnecting it from the system. Seth doesn't approve of this, obviously, and breaks the glass on his own telepod to escape and attack. Right when the sequence fires off, taking him as well as a good chunk of the telepod and combining them into a new biomechanical monstrosity. Not the xenomorph super awesome deadly kind, but a we shoved a V8 engine into a line and don't understand why it didn't work kind. But he's not dead yet. As Seth closes in, Veronica has one shell left on that over-under shotgun, but can't bear to shoot her former lover no matter how absolutely fucked up he is. Thing is, that's exactly what he wants her to do, because, seriously, look at this guy. Guinness World Record for the most self-destructive life choices in history. So, she takes aim. The end! Yeah, the movie does continue on for a few more seconds after that, but that's pretty much where the movie just stops. There were a few endings that they were kicking around that they didn't exactly settle on any of them. There was one where Veronica's child was born normal, another where the child was born with butterfly wings, and another where she got back together with her douchebag ex. 'Cause that's a smart idea. I mean, yeah, he sacrificed a bit for you at the end, but he's still a dick. But, as their producer put it, once your hero is dead, the movie is over, so that's what they did. Anyway, that was The Fly, and it is very clearly a product of its time that really didn't pay much heed at all to how the original story went. So why is it so damn good? It's an interesting conundrum considering those things are the cardinal sins of a lot of remakes today, taking a well-known story, gutting it of its original conflicts to make a new one only superficially related to the first, and throwing in all the newest gadgets and references to the current year to almost neuter your story's ability to ever be considered timeless. Something about The Fly, though, just works. It was the breakout role for Jeff Goldblum, who was an actor for many years before this movie, but only in smaller roles. This means at the time, while he was experienced enough to perform, he was also unknown enough that people didn't come to the film with a preconceived idea of what kind of character he's playing. Now he's always playing scientists and intellectuals thanks to this movie, but for this particular casting choice, he wasn't a bad idea. The effects, of course, are those brilliant 80s practical effects all us film critics love to gush about, but isn't this also something we complain about in remakes? Vastly more effects shots, using the latest technology in movie making to give the audience as much eye candy as they can take. If that's what makes remakes bad, The Fly is more than guilty of this. It might be the original sin that sparked that trend in the first place. However, the original sin part of the equation might be what makes this movie so special. A big-budget blockbuster remake of a classic B-movie creating its own story loosely based on the source material and throwing special effects everywhere. You really didn't see that very often before The Fly. While it's gotten to the point today that as a whole people are getting fucking sick of it, at the time it was actually a novelty. At the end of the day, The Fly is a remake in the sense that it took the idea of the original story and modernized it for the 80s. It didn't seek to be the original again, and indeed doesn't work as a replacement. They both exist very well side by side, and there are reasons to track down and watch each of them. When it comes to reasons to mark this down, I'm honestly having trouble coming up with ones that aren't nitpicky as hell, even for me, and as a fan of science fiction and horror for purposes of exploring ideas of science and actually invoking a sense of dread, The Fly is one of the great examples out there of how to do it, and do it with style, coming in at 5 Kool-Aid monsters out of 5. Even Vincent Price, one of the stars of the original movie, praised this upon release, saying that it was very well done, although even at the end he said it was, really weird even for him. But, oh well. Thank you all for watching. I've been Shado, and remember, stop programming computers to just do whatever the fuck they want for no apparent reason. I'm talking to you, Microsoft!
I am finally onto something that's big, huge.
Yeah? What? His cock?